Fantastic. Okay, I now declare the meeting of the City Community Services and Culture Committee open and advise this meeting will be recorded and streamed live to the City of Adelaide website. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside of Australia. The City of Adelaide acknowledges the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains as the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. We acknowledge and honour their spiritual and cultural stewardship of this country and recognise their deep and enduring relationship with its lands, waters, the sky and all living things. We pay our respects to Kaurna elders past and present and recognise the important role of emerging leaders in sustaining and strengthening culture. Apologies and leave of absences, we have none today. I'll seek a move and a seconder for confirmation of minutes. Councillor Kabada moved, seconded by Deputy Lord Mayor Noon. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Members, any declarations of conflict of interest to make today? Councillor Freeman?
Yes, Chair, just declaring a general conflict with item 6.1, which is a workshop and it doesn't specify DIP, but I assume that the Department of Infrastructure and Transport will be involved with this reference group, which is where I work, so just declaring a general conflict in that regard, but I'll participate in the workshop.
Thank you. Councillors, any of the members like to make a declaration? I think you're safe. I've got 2 cats.
I don't have any animals.
Members, we'll go straight on to 6.1, a workshop for the Eastern Parklands Community Reference Group. And now I'll ask Joe Joliak to introduce. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Through the Chair. The team have reflected on discussions from last week's council meeting, and today's workshop is just to take additional time to canvass views on the report. I'm going to hand to the team to take us through some context slides and then for any questions and round out before we have any feedback in terms of that space. So I'll hand over to Jennifer Kalionis to take us through the high-level slides.
Thank you, and through the Chair. Major events are a part of Adelaide's identity, bringing people together, supporting local businesses and showcasing our city on the world stage. It is proposed that the value of the reference group we're talking about tonight lies in influencing the many decisions that sit between the decision to hold an event and the community's experience of that event. These include how the event is designed, delivered and integrated into the parklands and how its impacts are identified, minimised and managed. The workshop slides, which we will take as read, outline that in response to the decision of Council, the reference group is proposed as a structured forum for early, meaningful and ongoing engagement, particularly noting that the Eastern Parklands will be impacted by a long period of construction and event build over coming months. The aim is to work positively with the community to ensure that events like the 2027 to 2032 MotoGP can coexist with the parkland and its users. The South Australian Motorsport Board has made it clear in its presentations and communication that it believes the Council is responsible for engaging with the community. We currently do not consult directly with the community on Motorsport Board-led events. We've included in the slides what we heard from Council last week, and we're here tonight to receive any additional feedback and answer any questions.
Lord Mayor, would you like to go first?
My view is that this is perhaps in error. I think the timing might be wrong. My experience of negotiating over events is that we are not in a position to alter some of them, and this might lead the community to believe that we can intervene in some of the areas that we're not able to. I think we should put a bit more thought into it and maybe do it in 6 months or 8 months' time. And we've thought about it a bit more. I just don't think we're quite ready. This isn't quite there yet.
Forgive me a little bit, I thought it was your concept.
Nothing to do with me.
Oh, I must be mistaken, apologies.
It was in the documentation and advice from administration. I don't write those.
Councillor Giles.
Yeah. I think in principle it's a really good idea because, as you say, we don't, as we said that what we do normally is rely on the event people to consult with the community, and then we get really angry because they don't do it properly, or we they don't listen to the consultation. It just, I don't know whether or not, like I know that we have little power in relation to changing decisions like whether or not MotoGP is an appropriate event to hold in the parklands, because we don't have the legislative power to stop that from happening. And I don't want it to be seen like it's a way of ameliorating the community so that they feel like they're having a say when they don't have a say, or that they can do a whole lot of work and put up a whole lot of stuff that would just be ignored. So, but I do think it's a really great strategy for the council to say, look, we've got our own group. This is what our community is telling us. It's not the council saying this, it's our community saying this, in order to be able to provide that feedback directly to government. So, you know, I think it's a good idea, but I think we've got to be really clear that we're not going to change the government's mind necessarily. It will be a way of making clearer the concerns of the community rather than as a lobby group to change the government's mind. And also, like from my experience so far of the concern that's around the MotoGP event in Victoria Park, that people are feeling as if they don't have a voice and that decisions are being made without any consideration of the things that they're raising. So it might also provide an opportunity for people to have that place where they can hear each other and actually form some positions together, and also that might go elsewhere other than just in the group. You know, they might be able to form alliances that might be able to have a stronger view elsewhere. So I'm sorry I'm sounding a bit vague, but I ostensively like the idea of us facilitating better input from our community that's directly affected by these events or these potential events. But I don't want people to think that that will do it in terms of stopping the impact of these events on the parklands or in the community.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Just for a point of clarification, this was actually a part of a motion that was actually approved on the 9th of June at a council meeting. So we're enacting our very motion that we approved. I actually am a very big supporter of this. I actually think, and I think the timing is actually perfect. I actually think that although, and I'm very aware that there was a meeting that was held last week and it was facilitated by Minister Hood, and she gathered very similar a group to discuss this particular topic. I spoke to one of the East End residents that actually attended that particular meeting. He was happy that the meeting was called, but there was no structure around the meeting. I asked if that was the first of many meetings. He said yes, but it was very clear at the meeting that because the Motor Sports Board attended, one of their representatives, and basically said that no, the design is happening the way they want it. It really isn't going to change whatever they've already agreed, which we haven't heard about yet. But at the end of the day, I think that this is a great group, and I don't think it's just for this particular event. I think we could use this moving forward for other issues that come up that we need the community to actually respond to, or we need a forum where we can communicate with them. We're like the conduit here. I think we can actually hear their concerns. And I did have a problem with the terms of reference because there were some issues some areas that I think we could have strengthened. I have sent a draft copy to Jennifer and Adam on areas that I think could improve the terms of reference. and it was mainly around governance versus operational. And I actually believe that this is a really good forum to listen to our community. It's got good structure around it, so it allows people to send through their problems. It allows them to be heard everywhere I go. In the last 3.5 years, it's the residents saying that they don't have a voice. I actually think that this is a way of giving the residents a voice in a really structured manner, and for us to communicate that voice to the stakeholders that are involved with this. I actually totally support this with a few tweaks of the actual TO terms of reference, and I think that we should incorporate this very, as soon as we possibly can, and I hope that it actually evolves. And when we've got issues around the fringe, and when we've got issues around road closures, and that we can use this reference group for different things.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'd just like to apologise to the Lord Mayor. I was getting confused with something else. This is clearly about a motion passed in June, so I apologise for my comments earlier. I got very confused, Lord Mayor.
I honestly say you haven't offended me.
In that case, moving swiftly on, Councillor Marr.
Hello, thank you. Page 7, I don't know what slide number that is. 2 further slides. The bottom point there, can you please expand on that?
Oh, yeah, I would like to know what that.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, there was some discussion in the chamber last week that there may have been another group, which I think Councillor Noon has just, Deputy Lord Mayor, apologies, has just referred to. So there was a query about that we shouldn't duplicate if they're the same, if they've got the same ends or means as well.
So that leads me to my next question, as far as duplication goes. So the Most Board Act requires the Most Board to consult with Council, and Council obviously will want to consult with the community so that we can then provide that to the Most Board. How is that a duplication if it's something coming directly through the local member's office, because then it's not coming through Council? So I don't see that this is a duplication. I think this seems to me to be exactly what we should be doing, like following the legislative pathway. Even if there's a group meeting with Minister Hood, that's not our pathway, so we would have to do this regardless. So I think, I don't know if I agree that it is duplication, and I certainly wouldn't see that duplication of members is probably a good thing. We could probably make sure we get some different people.
We're not suggesting there is a duplication. We've had some feedback.
Right, I understand.
Need to avoid duplication.
Yeah.
And if the state government...
Apologies, CEO. Are you able to use your microphone?
Sorry. If the state government consultative group chaired by Minister Hood doesn't have the terms of reference, it strikes me we're streets ahead.
Yeah.
So, yes, on the whole, keep going, good. And then the second question, on this slide, you mentioned membership should include local businesses, grassroots, and on the next page it talks about nominations based on broad community representation. Do we have an idea of what exactly we're sort of looking for? Are we looking for residents, business owners, visitors, transient, people who ride a bike through but don't stay? Or what are the sort of groups we're trying to get a representation of?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, those groups, and we're open tonight to hear your feedback on who Council would like to see incorporated into the membership.
Okay. Will we, a maximum of 12-15 members, are we expecting, how are we going to advertise this to get membership? How is that going to work?
Again, open to feedback from the committee tonight. There may be plans for an open, transparent application process for the community, seeking, as we mentioned in last week's report, a broad range of views, sporting event organisers, residents, businesses, precinct groups, and applications will be called for the community and selected from there.
Can I suggest, unrelated to that, regarding the timing, we're in a difficult position where we haven't got the feedback from the Motorsport Board yet as to exactly what it is that we're even consulting on. So setting it up beforehand is good. Having conversations before that probably won't go anywhere. There's nothing concrete to talk about. And as far as the trial for 12 months, I would rather see that based on not 12 months as a time period, but event-based in this case, such that it would be, I don't know, a month after the bump out of the MotoGP event, whatever that happens to be, rather than giving it a fixed 12-month period. I'd like to see it. Make sure that we get to the end of that so we can keep the conversation going and then reassess if we're going to keep doing this particular pathway or if it's served its purpose. Thanks.
Councillor.
No, I just might add to that in terms of the view is that that by having diversity of people around the table is that not only can you identify opportunities, but you can identify really good solutions. And so that is also the role of this reference group in terms of being able to turn their heads to what are solutions that work for everyone rather than one effectively section of the community. So that's the broadness that we think out of the reference group gives the value to it.
And that broadness then follows into the effects before, during and after, so hence the time frame question as well. Yeah, thank you.
I've got Councillor Freeman, followed by Councillor Cavada, followed by Councillor Stevenshire, followed by Councillor Couros. So Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of comments. First of all, I think these guiding principles are pretty good. It probably wouldn't change anything. I think the purpose of this group is clear. And just to clarify, I spoke to a resident of the Eastern City who also attended that meeting at Minister Hood's office, and my understanding is it was not a reference group, it was not organised by her office, it was a request from the residents who went in there with pitchforks and very politely had a discussion. So I'm not sure if there is anything to duplicate, that's my understanding. So this is more important than ever and immediately should be implemented as soon as possible. This is not just about MotoGP, this is about the motorsport events. We know they're bumping in next month, so we need to set this up now. We do need to have that formal forum where we can hear people, but also collate what they're saying and communicate it up to the state government. Because to be honest, without a reference group or a formal feedback loop established, and people tell me stories of sending emails that don't get responded to, calls don't get answered, people are going to Facebook and things are getting a bit crazy. So if council can actually help to calm things down and communicate in a professional manner to state government, I actually think that would be very helpful. So that's timing purpose. Just a couple of other things about the membership. I think the 12 to 15 members seems reasonable, but just based on the broader interest in this topic, maybe we should think about how other people can watch from the gallery or online or minutes or something like that. I imagine there'll be a lot of interest. And just finally, I'm aware that the other local governments, all of them that interface with the Eastern Parklands, are also bringing things through the chamber and asking similar questions. So not to suggest we need to make this a huge thing. I think we just get on with it, but just making the point that other local councils may look to what we've done and want to do something similar, and maybe they meet at some stage.
Councillor Cavada.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a question. So this group, so if someone's got an issue about what's going on, they would go to this group to bring up in a meeting to then come to council to then write to state government? Just to council? Yeah. So they could just write to us directly, call us, like normally would happen, I guess. I think I agree with the Lord Mayor. I don't see the point in just having a group just for the sake of having a group. I think people can just write to us directly. I get people writing to me about different things. I don't see the point in having a group to tell us what people are doing instead of just writing to us already.
Councillor Stevenshire.
Certainly a topic with what we're covering here that I'm getting lots of feedback on from both community members of the South East in particular and businesses. I do feel like I'm perhaps lukewarm around this as an approach, and I'll share why. There's absolutely no debate for me about the need for information sharing, and we want to be able to share what's going on. and also hear back. Question for me is, does that need to be in a formally constituted community reference group for us to be able to share information and hear it back? That's the question I'm asking myself. And I think the risk we run is, are we creating what's going to appear to be a quasi-decision-making body? And even if we say it's not a decision-making body, will that be the assumption, once it's up and running, will there be some sort of assumption that it is informing decisions, when the reality is that even ourselves, we're not actually making decisions on this. All we're doing is filtering back feedback ourselves. So I think there's a worthwhile cause here in terms of information sharing. My question is really, it's the governance one, and how do we set this up so that it's a reasonable forum to provide the opportunity for sharing information, but it doesn't in any way set that expectation that if you're one of the 15 people in this group, you're somehow about to influence the decision. Because if they think that, they're going to be mightily left down, and we're the ones who'll end up with egg on our face, because the expectation will be, well, why did we set it up? Because there'll be that expectation there. So that's just explaining a little bit why I'm lukewarm. It's not because I don't think information sharing is important, it's how we manage that expectation around decision making. A couple of minor points of note is it's great to see a specific reference of Hutt Street Traders, and I assume the same would be for the East End Coordination Group. The other thing is I see no reason, if this was to go ahead, why we couldn't call out other community groups like SACRO, who does a great job and has already been actively involved in a matter of range of issues down there. So I think it'd be logical for us to directly engage with those groups.
Councillor Cross.
I guess the comment that Councillor Freeman made, open to the public, is that a yes? I didn't quite catch that. So will other people be able to view the meeting, because it's only 12 to 15 groups, and there will be a lot of interest in wanting to know what is discussed? Is that going to be open to the public, or I'm not sure? I'm not understanding that.
Thank you for the question. Again, we're in the committee's hands. If that's what the committee would like to see, we can work that into the terms of reference.
I'm very intrigued by what Councillor Stephen-Tripp said, and I agree, setting the expectations. So we've got no government body at the table here. It's all by community run by council. Council listens to the feedback. Our job is then what? To take it to state government? Is that what we're saying? That feedback from these members of the group? I'm just trying to work out how effective it all is and how to manage communities' expectations, because I don't want them to think that they come to something and then they put all their heart and soul into it and then they go, this doesn't work, so it's all.
Thank you for the question. We imagine that some of the issues raised at the reference group would be resolved through council. Some of the issues raised would need to be raised to state government as well. We can think of some recent examples with residents and pathways and other situations that were a result of motorsport board action in the parklands, which we resolved as council administration.
Okay.
But it would be through a forum like this where these issues could be raised and resolved collectively.
All right, so you're saying, well, the motorsports it's happening anyway, but it's impacting certain people in a certain way, the feedback comes through here. What if there's residents and businesses that don't know about this group? I mean, they still, they have to raise it with this group, or can they still raise it with council, or are they going to be heard if it's not raised through this group? And I'm just trying to understand, all of that. So are we still going to be capturing the people's concerns even if they're not involved in this working group?
Through the presiding member, Councillor Cross has raised a question that echoes the question raised by Councillor Kabata. The establishment of this reference group in no way limits or impedes the ability of any member of our community to raise matters directly with council. So this is a specific forum focused on what's happening in a precinct, in an area that's potentially impacted by events that aren't fully controlled by council. So the short answer to your question is there is still an opportunity for all of our community to raise matters directly with council. What we're attempting to do with this group is to collate and theme feedback from directly impacted community members so that we can either resolve their issues as a council or pass them on to state government.
Councillor Upper today.
Thank you, Chair. I think what this reference group might try to do is essentially do the councillor's job. Councillor Noon mentioned that we are the conduits to the community, and I think that is absolutely 100% correct. We are the conduits, so if there is feedback, good, bad, ugly, it's on us to bring that back to the chamber and give that feedback to the administration. I'm just mindful of the precedent that it might set, because then when it comes to certain functions of this council, whether if it's formulating or adopting a certain strategy or a certain policy, or the budget, which is one of the big things that we do every year, does that mean that we should also be looking at a reference group there in terms of those elements? In the body of the reports, there was something about I think it was grassroots engagement or something along those lines. So I think if that's what we are after, then I think we're better off having one or a number of workshops with the community, getting that that feedback, bringing it back into the chamber, and dealing with that feedback appropriately and adequately. I'm not criticising the administration's work. I know that they're working on a council resolution, but that's my feedback for this reference group.
Thank you, Councillor. I think almost everyone has spoken now. Councillor Martin, and then I'll give it a go.
Oh, okay. All right. Look, I've always thought that having as much input from other parties is an advantage rather than a disadvantage. I am clear in my own mind about the structures through which council receives advice about the parklands. We have a parklands authority on which there are 50% of the representatives appointed by the state government, 50% of the representatives appointed by council, each having specialist areas in which they have expertise that they can relate to us. I know that as an elected member, I'm frequently contacted by businesses and individuals who have issues with parklands. This represents a different opportunity. It is an opportunity for people, in my view, outside of the City of Adelaide to provide an informal advice or informal views that would assist us in reaching decisions on a host of subjects. Now, I think it's unfortunate that this has flowed from the motorsport GP in particular, because there seems to be a concentration on that aspect of this part of the committee's functioning. I'm more interested in hearing about views more generally about parklands uses related to fringe, festival, bikeways on parklands, equipment, and particularly from surrounding local government areas, all of which I said in council, have a substantial interest in the parklands. They are where most of the users of the parklands are residing, in surrounding councils. And they are making decisions about their land uses within their local government boundaries based on what happens in the parklands. I see this as being a very useful tool through which information can be funneled to council. It has no higher status than that. And if it has no higher status than that, where is the harm?
Deputy Lord Mayor.
I mean, you picked up on my point before that I would see this maybe evolving and not just, so maybe the terms of reference could be broader, that we actually have a community reference group for the East End, for events, for road closures, for the fringe, for a range of different things. And obviously whatever's topical at the time would be the issue discussed and dealt with. But it could be broader. It could actually be more about what we hear all the time from our residents and our businesses, especially in the East End, about the impacts of various things that happen through the year. So a reference group would be quite useful, not just for the motor sports, but for a range of other things. And I think it wouldn't be hard to tweak that terms of reference, that it is broader and the topics will be identified by the chair as, and I don't think we should be prescriptive of having a meeting every month. I think we could say that there would be at least 6 meetings a year or on an as-needs basis. To answer Councillor Kouros's issue about not having the state government at the table, they would absolutely be invited to these meetings as observers, not as members. And also, if we needed anyone to come to those meetings to present, it would be a well-functioning sort of community reference group that dealt with many issues, one being the motor GP, because that's a critical issue.
Everyone's had a chance to speak now, so I'll just say a little something before doing a few more of you put your hands up again. I have come into this with quite an open mind because I think the more conversations we have with the community, the grassroots, the better. But I actually really strongly do share the Lord Mayor's concerns around the potential to channel the energy in the wrong direction. I think that's how I would describe it, and have this as people confusing potentially council's role for state government's role, and effectively, about something that's quite a significant issue. And I realise there's a desire here to make it more broader scoped, but around the motorsports events in particularly, and having people effectively potentially lashing out the council at something that's completely out of our control, thinking that this group can fix things, when in fact we as a body and our administration are struggling to keep up with what the state government is doing and trying to, make it as least bad as possible for our constituents. So I do worry that this group could help enhance that concern. But that's just my thoughts after listening to the room. And at the end of the day, this group could be quite toothless, as I hate to say it, the council is in this regard. We are, and that's a real concern.
Can I just say something?
No, Councillor Giles, I'm currently speaking. I'll get to you after three more people. I think, yes, the concern of channeling the energy in the wrong direction is real. 12 to 15 members who represent their community, I can count 11 of them in the room right now. And I think Councillor Abrahim's point that is our job is important, and we need to be doing our job. And I realise it's quite a strong thing to say from the chair, but I have given everyone else a chance to go first. Now, I've got 3 people lined up. We have got a time limit to a meeting. This is a workshop, so we are welcome to carry on going. I've got Councillor Kouros, followed by Councillor Freeman, and then Councillor Giles. Councillor Kouros.
As feedback, if that's what you're looking for, if this is only about the MotoGP and because this is a very big change that's possibly happening down these parklands, I'm on the fence with it. But if you're looking to broaden this and to broaden the scope and to go deeper onto channel out to other issues, I mean, I'm not one for the north end. Where is this going to stop? I think taking on board what everyone's saying, some of the comments here, that is our job to bring that information to you. Sure, I mean, I just think that if we're going to stay on just one topic or one discussion or one concern, because it's pretty major, I'm on the fence with it. But if we're going to talk about going broader and talking about bigger other issues and expanding on it and doing all of that, I think it's going to get very complicated, and then I just think that's where it should stop, in my view.
Councillor Freeman.
I was actually going to say something similar to Councillor Kouros. I think there would be a question of inequity if we only had one community group and not for others. And I think we've maybe lost our way a little bit about why we need this. So people feel like they don't have a voice. Something is happening next month. There will be road closures all over the place. It'll be chaos. Maybe if a reference group is not the right channel for that, what else is there? And echoing what Councillor Stephen-Trud said and Councillor Abraham today, maybe it is a number of workshops instead, just to manage that expectation of what is a reference group and what isn't it. But the point is that it happens now. We give people that voice. Maybe we just mould how they do that.
Councillor Giles.
I don't think we can just sort of say, oh, let's all do this, because actually what we've got here is a crisis. We've got a situation now where there's just so much organised and so many events happening on that side of the city, and we're getting so much feedback from people around not being able to sleep, thinking about moving out of the area, the amount of noise, disruption, all of that sort of stuff happening. We actually need some assistance as a council, and I'm in administration as well, and working out how we solve these problems or how we can solidify all that information and not just have it randomly around event by event. The MotoGP event has really pushed up all these issues to an area which I'd say is putting that part of our city in a bit of a crisis. And I know we don't have all the information, but even just on the surface, you look at it, it might involve closing four roads. It's got, we're talking about maybe ripping up whole piles of the parklands in order to put in gravel pits. We're talking about maybe getting rid of olive groves and picnic areas, and I don't know, maybe the reconciliation memorial, we don't really know. So there's actually lots of issues that we need to deal with really quickly. So some of the best ways of dealing with those issues is not to pretend that we've got all the answers, because nobody individually has all the answers, but by creating a community voice where the community can actually provide us with their on-the-ground knowledge and their expertise so that we can better deal with the situation, with the crisis that we've got. And it wouldn't be long-lasting because it's something that we've got to deal with right now. And we've got to remember that these aren't people who are just thinking of themselves. These are groups who have been working in that area for a long period of time, know it really well, know the impact, have been living there, and they actually have the expertise, and often have the expertise collectively. For example, the group that looks after biodiversity taps into the butterfly park and manages and supports the council in the wetlands area. They know that area really, really well. And so instead of us having to become quick experts around stuff, let's provide an opportunity for them to sit down with each other and share their expertise and come to some solutions, but also raise issues that we may not have thought of because I've heard someone and that triggered another thought in their mind. So I don't think... I think we should give it a go because we've never done anything like this, and because I believe we have a crisis, and a crisis of managing this. If we don't listen to people around this in a way that they can share their expertise, then the next time it happens, I don't know what we're going to do.
Thank you, Councillor. And I don't want to lead too much from a chair here, but I listening to what Room is saying, I think we are broadly, very, very broadly on the same page. It's just what this looks like. And I like the idea that Councillor Abraham and others have said of perhaps a workshop, or maybe even a Lord Mayor's roundtable could be a good option.
Not heard what I just said.
Councillor, we're not debating each other. We're all getting a chance to speak. I agree with most of what you said. Just it's how we actually move forward and achieve it. Now, members, if that's it, we're going to have to move forward because we've got another item. So I'd like to move back.
Just before we do. Through the presiding member, thank you, committee members, for your feedback, which has clearly reflected a diversity of views which we need to absorb, reflect on, and do some further work. It's very clear to me that your administration won't be in a position to resolve this matter at the council meeting next Tuesday. I note that the item was deferred at the last council meeting to the 11th of August. Clearly, I don't think we can bring something back that does credit to the discussion tonight, and I'd be proposing that we'll let the matter slip from the agenda on the 11th of August and inform it with a committee report, which will be early September, which will reflect on what we've heard and present some options and present a recommendation for what form this group might look like, and that'll also take account of feedback we've had on the terms of reference. So this is this committee in September and the first council meeting in September.
Thank you, CEO. And thank you, appreciate that. We'll move on to item 7.1, the dog and cat management plan. And Joe Adelaide, what can introduce the item? Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, as the team come to the table, this report effectively seeks council adoption of the draft dog and cat management plan for 2026 to 2030. We're taking the report as read, but the team will highlight just some of the key areas of the report that we've specifically made changes to as the result of public consultation before opening up into any questions.
Thank you, Joe, and through the chair. This report seeks Council's adoption of the updated draft Dog and Cat Management Plan 2026 to 2030 following public consultation, which took place for 3 weeks between 18 May to 7 June 2026. Engagement with the community was encouraging, with 40 formal responses submitted. We're confident the consultation reflects the views of our community, with 65% of respondents being residents. Adjustments have been made to the draft plan following community consultation, including a commitment to review dog on-leash, off-leash and prohibited areas, which would include playgrounds, and undertaking greater engagement with cat owners on ownership responsibilities. The review of on and off-leash areas will also provide us an opportunity for assessment of performance against key actions within the plan to be reported on at around the halfway point. I'll throw it open to questions from here.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you for the report. I just have an issue. I recall sort of raising it before about apartment living and complex living and having more. There was a lot, I haven't got my notes in front of me, but I do recall there were a lot of comments in the community consultation feedback about apartments and around apartments and complex living areas. So I actually think that I would have liked to have seen a little bit more specifics around that in the plan.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and through the chair. Absolutely, there was a lot of discussion around apartment living, and we included a question within the survey around what it might look like if we achieve 50,000 residents by 2036 and what that might look like in terms of facility requirements for dog and cats. What we're looking to achieve through some of the proactive education actions within the plan is that we can seek to create fact sheets and information specifically for that audience to be able to work with them on ownership responsibilities and what that looks like in different sized dwellings.
Yeah, I imagine that you would need to work with strata bodies and community groups because they all have their different rules as well around pets in apartments and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would like to see more around that.
Thank you for your feedback.
Councillor Freeman.
Sorry, and just to add to Dan's review, where we see that coming in the actions is effectively in area 6 under A, and it's the responsible pet ownership piece and do more around the education piece, particularly as you talked about as multi-dwelling living, around the delivering regular community education initiatives, and then effectively very much about that responsible, particularly for barking dog incidents as well. So people know what to do, and we're encouraging responsible pet ownership before we get to those stages. So trying to get that education up front rather than effectively behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just following on from that, I had a similar question noting over half of the respondents had comments about increasing residential density and how we manage that. responsible pet ownership is one thing, but what I would have expected to see in the additional actions is something like an audit of what space is there to walk your dog if you live in an apartment when that space is dwindling by the day and squares are really inaccessible because they've got lots of lanes of traffic around them. And to be honest, I would really like to see that audit of how deficient are we, knowing we're going to be doubling the population and people have pets. Where do we need to head by 2031 and what infrastructure do we need to provide to service that population appropriately? So that for me was missing in additional actions in response to the consultation. And I just had a question as well. It's great to see the review of dog on-leash and off-leash spaces. There were some interesting comments about people that just feel unsafe about dogs on the street, and there are a lot of people that roam with their dogs off-leash in our city streets. So are you looking at streets as well with the off-leash and on-leash areas and prohibited areas?
Yeah, we'll be, through the chair, we'll be looking citywide at all areas within the city and what that looks like from off-leash and dog prohibited areas as well.
Okay, and prohibited areas will include like dog-free zones, which
Correct.
was suggested, whether that happens or not.
Yes.
And then just the final comment is, in terms of cats, I mean, there are a lot of stray cats in the city, and I think you can go to the council website and report a cat, maybe, but I think it probably there's lots where I live in the southwest. If there were a better way to just report sightings, I think, because it is a real problem and the community can really help us managing the colony, so to speak, and maybe that could be more obvious about who to actually contact. I don't know, is it a rescue, is it the RSPCA, thank you. I've had that experience personally. I didn't even know where to start, and maybe that could be more obvious.
Yeah, thank you for your feedback through the chair. Stray cats is a really low request driver currently, so that's great feedback that potentially we're not providing the right information on who to call in certain situations. So as part of the proactive education within the plan, we can certainly look at fact sheets on who are the appropriate organisations for support in different scenarios.
And just on that point as well, the cat call in the infamous cat call in the southwest, the gentleman's actually deceased now who was facilitating that, and so the numbers are dropping. That was my understanding. But
the pig house?
yes.
Oh.
And to follow that point, yes, I think there is an expectation amongst the community that when there are stray cats, that it is council who deals with that. When it's not the case, we have service providers that we bring into that. So having that clear communication is a wonderful idea. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
I'm happy to move as printed, but can I just ask a question about the consultation on and off leash dog and fenced areas in the parklands? Does that apply to other signage around playgrounds, or will you come back to us and discuss that before you put out that consultation?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. Do you mind clarifying, it's signage regarding pets around the playgrounds? It's
just that the playgrounds in Burnside have been used by various men's training groups. And it reminded me that in London there are various playgrounds that have a sign up that say no adults admitted unless accompanied by a child. And I think that's actually not a bad idea if people are going to use it as a training area. Which part of the organisation would consult on that?
Yeah, thank you for your question through the chair. That wouldn't be facilitated through the on or off leash areas review, but it's certainly something that we can take on notice and take back to the team on who would be best to respond to that.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add through the chair is it would depend on whether the training group was effectively a paid organisation, because it would require a lease or a licence to undertake activity, and it would be highly unlikely, I would expect, for us to approve a licence for a men's training ability in a children's playground. But I think the opportunity is for us to make sure that we've got signage right effectively in areas for children, effectively where dogs are or animals are in that space, to make sure that that's appropriate.
But there is a child safety issue. Adults should not be in playgrounds unaccompanied.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and we'll take that feedback on board and review the signage.
I've got Councillor Kouros, followed by then Councillor Martin and Councillor Marr. Councillor Kouros.
You mentioned that there was some tweaks done from the consultation. I'm looking at the map. What were other changes from the consultation? Looking at the map, sorry.
Thank you, and through the chair, there's been no changes to the on-off leash map, so the changes are the actions mainly within the objectives.
Right, okay, because everything looked the same to me.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Chair, I actually did get feedback from one person in relation to this. The point they were making and suggesting I might ask about was that we say at page 30 that the policy comes through engagement with the community through consultation. And the consultation clearly shows that people are concerned about feral cats, about cats killing wildlife in the parklands. They're concerned about off-leash dogs, according to one verbatim account in here, attacking guide dogs, that sort of thing. And yet none of that has informed the report. All that's done is prompted a promise of a review in 2 years. And so their question to me is, what is the point of consultation if it doesn't impact the policy, that it merely brings a review for a policy that may come 4 years later?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, the main change made to the policy through the consultation and feedback on stray cats has been around including new actions that are relating to proactive education on responsible pet ownership. Those are for cats that are owned, however. When we talk about stray or feral cats, it is a low request driver through the team at the moment. However, we're certainly continuing to monitor the trends and community sentiment on whether we need to change our approach to stray cats.
I guess that's the answer. Thank you.
In addition to that, effectively, the other piece that the team have picked up is the importance of monitoring and enforcement of the bylaws. So the team have worked through what does that look like for a regular routine of our community safety officers to be available at various dog areas, and particularly during peak times on weekends, where effectively we might see large numbers of effectively residents and people in the area. So reviewing effectively our enforcement piece as well to make sure that we have more of a visible presence so people can see that we're taking it seriously.
Yeah. Just as a supplementary or as an observation, Chair, I think the point that was made to me was people were looking for something a bit more progressive than we'll have another look at it in 2 years. And I get the impression that there is, though I might not agree with it, an appetite to do something about cats roaming parklands, attacking wildlife, and an expectation that we, as the sponsors of the parklands, need to be aware of it and doing something about it.
Councillor Moore.
I was quite interested to read the verbatim comments, quite visceral and polarised. I didn't count them, but it seemed pretty much 50-50. And no written comments in the middle. It was one or the other regarding each topic. Yeah. There was one that caught my attention about Bulrush Park. So page 39 of the pack. Has that changed? Was that previously off-leash, or is that currently off-leash and it's becoming on-leash? Or is there a misunderstanding here?
Thank you, and through the chair, that's something I would need to take on notice for today to come back to you with a response to that.
But perhaps expanding that to a bit more of a detailed question then, something with some substance, would be the map on page 39 of the pack. That's reflecting what the policy will be if this is approved. Can you give me a current one and maybe the most recent previous change, one before that as well?
Yes.
Just as a comparison point.
Thank you, through the chair. I believe the last change to on and off-leash areas was made in 2021, which is the last time that the review was undertaken.
Okay. It'd be nice to see a map of that before the council.
Prior to the changes. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Through the presiding member, we'll put an e-news out between now and the council meeting.
Thanks, yeah. Councillor Giles, and then I think the Lord Mayor's moved after that. So.
I just got a question whether or not the facilities provided in a dog park are part of this policy area, or does that come under something else? Like, and I'm specifically referring to whether or not a dog park has access for people with disabilities. Does that sort of come under this area, or does it come under something else?
No, through the chair, effectively, this is more the policy about how we enact the dog and cat management, effectively, in the legislation. Effectively, what's got for disability would be under infrastructure, and so we would provide advice through to our infrastructure colleagues who would help in terms of upgrades, in either new or upgrade refurbishments going forward.
Okay, and my second question is, another point is that a question is around if stray cats, we currently, sorry if I've missed this in the discussion, we currently don't have a rounding up of stray cats function. No, I just want to add my voice that that's an issue being raised with me as well, and not just by a man in a pink house, but by quite a number of people that they consider there's a problem with stray cats. So.
All right. Councillor Freeman, last question.
Oh, just a very quick question. When we mentioned the bylaw earlier and enforcement, so what is the enforcement we have in place if someone has 3 dogs when they're only allowed to have 2? I mean, maybe we can discuss this another time if the answer is long, but I'm just wondering, I wasn't aware there actually was enforcement because, again, I've had personal experience where reporting didn't do anything when someone had 4 dogs rather than 2. That was a comment.
Yeah, so the team effectively, they were notified that there was a breach of the bylaws, they would firstly go through a notification process and encouragement to actually solve it themselves before effectively we went down in enforcement. So we generally use education first to solve the problem. If we don't, we actually then use enforcement notices and take action based on that. But happy to have a look at individual circumstances.
Lord Mayor, you moved a motion. Second. Councillor Cabada. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Move straight on to 7.2, Golden Model Park, final landscape and access design. Members, I just note we've only got 20 minutes left until we have to start the next meeting. Everyone's put their hand up, I'm not sure who went first. Councillor Cabada's nearest.
I'd just like to move it.
I'll
Moved.
second it.
Seconded by Councillor Giles. Would you like to comment? Councillor Giles, would you like to comment?
It looks good, and I just want to say that driving past this, it looks like a really good development. It's very discreet and close to the road, and it looks like it's going really well.
Councillor Stephen.
Yeah, I'll be brief through you, Chair. It's fantastic to see this moving forward. I think one observation is I'm not sure how 1,100 ground covers helps a sporting club, and I think as we look at the design preferences in the future for community building and parklands, we really need to think around what we're asking of these sites. I get the reason why we're putting some of these landscape elements in, but we know these are costly developments. Communities are trying to raise money for it, so we do need to look at what's an absolute necessity to get these projects over the line. But other than that observation, I'm very happy to support this.
There's lots of green there, Joe.
Sorry, did the Lord Mayor press the button? Councillor Freeman.
So I've got lots to say tonight. Just a quick comment about the disability parking spaces. I love that this design has prioritised all of the things we should in the parklands, but I'm not sure if we've got other examples of an arrangement like this where there's 2 spaces and someone might just whip in and go, oh, beauty, I'll park there, and they actually take away that parking space from someone who needs it. So how do we monitor compliance with disability spaces like that, and maybe does this need attention?
Thanks for the question through the chair. We obviously don't actively monitor it, but there is only it is behind a boom gate, so the club can only access that when the area is being used by or people can only access that, when it's being opened by someone in the club. We are a little bit reliant on the club community to police that amongst themselves. It's been a similar situation in the park at the moment, though it's not formalised. There is the ability for someone to park in there. They get 1 permit essentially per club. So, I guess we rely on the community to police that a bit.
Councillor Cabada, something up? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. That draws an end to the meeting. Thank you.
Can you please take your seats?
Good evening, everyone. I declare the meeting of the City Planning, Development and Business Affairs Committee open and advise that this meeting will be recorded and streamed live to the City of Adelaide's website. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia. The City of Adelaide acknowledges the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains as the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet here today. We acknowledge and honour their spiritual and cultural stewardship of this country and recognise their deep and enduring relationship with its lands, waters, the sky and all living things. We pay our respects to Kaurna elders past and present and recognise the important role of emerging leaders in sustaining and strengthening culture. We have no apologies or absence of leave tonight, and I now seek a mover and seconder to move the minutes of the 7th of July. Councillor, I think. No, I think it was Councillor Martin. I couldn't see your arms. And Councillor Stephen Tripp. All in favour? Carried. Has any members got a conflict of interest that they need to declare? No? We have no deputations, no workshops, but we have a few reports that we have to get through. So the first one is Tree Martins Management 25-26 End of Season Report. And I ask Ilya to speak to this.
Excuse me, Chair. Thank you, and through the Chair. This evening for the presentation of our report on the 25-26 Tree Martin roosting season, we're joined by Sarah Gilmore and Matthew Field, who you'll be familiar with. We're also joined by Phil Shaw, the Managing Director of Avishaw, who is our consultant on this particular body of work, and Jason Van Wienen from Green Adelaide.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide our end of season, as you can see on screen. There are probably a couple of key points that we'll go into. We won't labour the report. I think it does speak for itself, but it's worth pointing out a couple of quick highlights, and then the team is ready to take questions. In particular, what I wanted to highlight for the committee is that this is the first full year that the City of Adelaide has undertaken this level of monitoring of tree martins within the public realm, and in effect provides a base year with which we can put some weight on the numbers. There are a number of takeaways about managing in situ, and also noting that, no doubt not lost on members, that the season itself changes year on year. So it's our best estimates on when it commences and when it ends, and you would see from your weekly reports that we still do have a very small population of tree martins within the public realm. Last year we had the season declared at the end of May. This year it's continued on a little bit longer. On that point, I'm happy to take the report as read and open up to questions.
Councillor Kabata.
I would like to move 7.1 and 7.2 on block. We can discuss it after I move it. I can see we can discuss it. I'm not saying we can't discuss it. Just like the
That'll take us out of workshop conditions.
We're not in workshop.
Kabata, could members ask questions or first before we
Yeah, I think
move
I can move it and people can still ask questions because I haven't wrapped up.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second it.
Moved by Councillor Kabata, seconded by Lord Mayor. Councillor Kabata, would you like to speak to it?
I'm okay.
I'll speak to it. I just wanted a couple of questions. Can I just thank you? I think this is an amazing report. You've done a brilliant job. And it gives us confidence that we've done everything correctly. I think that we've been criticised by a variety of people But because we've got collaboration and experts, I actually feel quite confident we've done as much as we could have done. I still think it's been a very difficult period for the traders. And I think that the Rundle Mall Committee and management obviously have been consulted as well in the process, but I just keep my fingers crossed that we have as good a year next year. So, thank you.
Point of order, Chair. I think a few of us are a little bit confused as to what's just happened in terms of what we're actually being asked to.
Through the presiding member, if I can assist, my clear understanding is that Councillor Kabata has moved item 7.1 and 7.2 on block. So while that doesn't impact on the ability for questions to occur, it's been moved and seconded. That's a valid motion. Ultimately, it'll be up to the committee in terms of how you vote at the end of the debate.
Councillor Stephen Tripp.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, CEO. Thank you very much for everyone who's contributed to the report. I feel like we've had a positive step forward this year in terms of monitoring to collect information to better know how to manage the site. Was a really big step forward. We're obviously trying to bring biodiversity into the city, so there's a good outcome here, even though it's presented some challenges. I did have a couple of questions. The first one was, it would seem it's almost inevitable that we have some loss of birds, which is obviously sad on one hand, but I'm interested particularly perhaps from a state government perspective, whether there's a view, not to put you on the spot, but I direct the question through the chair to as to whether there's a view on what is an acceptable level of loss for birds, because I think that what the figure is over 1,000 in this report. I imagine the more we try to bring that down, the greater the cost is going to be. So I'm interested whether the state government has a view on what an acceptable loss level would be, aside from zero, which is what I'm sure we'd all prefer.
Yeah, so obviously with a species like this, native species, we obviously love to see the numbers minimised, and I think that's where the real value of this work that Council have delivered is highlighted, because there is really good information as to the causes of the incidents, the fatalities, and so that provides really good information on the breadth of issues still facing the birds at the site, which is a really good basis for deciding what more could be done. So, for example, if the decals have shown to be really effective, and when there have been problems, which has been picked up through the monitoring, where those problems have been addressed and there's been a rapid change in how the impacts have been at those sites, that's a really good information to sort of move forward with. So really having a look at those breadth of impacts, the causes, and evaluating, okay, are they have they been dealt with, or there's still options available? I think that's a great position to be in. In terms of those overall numbers, whilst they are high, it's likely that there is attrition of birds at any roosting site because it's such a congregation. But it's I guess that is a really tricky figure to say what is suitable. I guess it's when situations like this are dynamic, it's around what are they now, what could they be with some more actions in terms of amelioration efforts, or is that literally the best that can be done? And that's the real question, I guess, around when looking at those fatality figures.
Great, thank you. And Chair, before I come to my second question, I did want to note that I think this is a really good example. We had a strong focus on evidence-based decision-making, and I think the Chair of Green Adelaide previously did a great job briefing us in on how to approach it. My second question is just around the cost of cleansing. So I know we're looking at, ultimately there's a bit of a cost-benefit assessment here. My understanding is that the cleansing is currently involving removing the bird faeces, which are going into drains, but it would seem that I suppose clarification is the odour that persists due to the faeces being stuck in the drains, and have we done any assessment of what would it take to actually get the faeces out of the drains to hopefully prevent the odour from persisting?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. It's a question to break down in parts. I think, first of all, certainly what the city has done is work with its existing cleaning regime look at when the roosting season has seen peak population, increase that regime accordingly. So you will see in the graphs and the reports that you've received all through the season, we peaked at some 20,000 birds. The cleansing regime went up with the population. Separate to that, and really important to note, and it's been an issue the city has had before, we get big rain events, the drains flush after hot summers, other material comes through our drainage system, that brings odour too. So it's important we kind of disassociate but also acknowledge that the cleansing team deal with what comes through the drains through Rundle Mall that isn't related to the tree martin occupation and roosting season versus what is actually on site and on situ and what we increase our cleansing regime for. So we deal with all of those issues in the public realm, and sometimes they coalesce, downstream wash plus what's happening in the middle of the roosting season.
So perhaps, Chair, sorry, just one follow-on from there is I'm not advocating for a very big bowl of bicarb soda sitting in the drains, but are there other deodorising or deodorant options? Obviously, decals look like they're good from preventing birds from flying into the windows, but are there any other options around odour, which seems to be a persistent issue?
Yes, certainly. And again, thank you through the Chair. To give a sense of the volume of work, we've done professional cleansing twice of the drain system during the roosting season. There's daily flushing and daily cleansing, deodorising within the Rundle Mall precinct itself. It's a precinct that sees a high level of cleansing anyway because of the nature of foot traffic within the area. And so the team has deployed all of its kind of odour methods as well as cleansing methods through the season. It's also given us the opportunity this year as the first year to really assess which are the more effective methodologies and to have them ready as part of the proposal for the management response, which we'll deal with in the next report.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I thank you for the report. It's great. It has a lot of information in it. I get how the matrix leads us to the point where we take the minimalist approach, which is how I describe what's occurring. And there are circumstances there that suggest that we would change that approach. But what happens, and it's not canvassed here, if we have a huge increase in numbers? If these birds go home to wherever it is and say, hey, Rundle Mall's a great place and bring a few mates each, we are in different circumstances. Would that require then a review of the matrix, or would we throw out the rule book and start again?
Look, thank you for the question and through the Chair. I'm just conscious, and we'll take a lead from the Chair on this. I think that question leads into the report that's next on the agenda, Councillor Martin.
I think it's in the same item, 7.1 and 7.2.
In both, okay. No, sorry, the items have been combined, but my point is we're talking on the end of season report as opposed to the management report and the decision matrix, which features in the second report this evening.
But they've moved on block together, but...
Yeah, they're on block together, so...
Councillor, my apologies.
We're discussing them together, but if you could identify which one.
Yes.
Oh, I'm talking about...
I'm very clear where you're located.
So 7.2, the attachment you're speaking to.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll come back. We'll deal with the item that's housed within 7.2. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you for the question and through the Chair. So I'm referring to the attachment to the second report item 7.2, and the matrix that is in section 741 of that report. What page of your agenda pack? I think it's 114 of the agenda pack. At the bottom of the page. So the way the management plan has been developed, it provides us decision tools so that depending on the situation each year, we can run some tests and have a look at them. You'll see in that matrix, the first item is the number of tree martins, and we've provided some bands of how many tree martins. If we did get to a situation where we were much larger than the current numbers that we saw, that could trigger a change to that matrix, and then we would look at what situation and what responses we would put in place. Certainly at the 20,000 plus, that was a more challenging situation to manage than when the numbers were lower earlier in the season.
And I guess that's the next question, and I know that it has to be a speculative response, but is it more likely to go up or come down?
Thank you for the question and through the chair. With the number of trees in that particular location, we saw at parts of the season that those trees were very full. So in some regards, it does depend on tree structure and availability of roost location in that particular area. As the trees grow, well, potentially there is a little bit more roost location, but there would be a limit to, I think, what the total number could be within that existing set of trees.
And I'm interested to know at what point do you adopt not only the minimalist approach that we are now, but the what I'll term the evasive measures of pruning trees and so forth in other locations. Is that something you would do only on the basis of there being an appearance of the birds in the area, or you would do as a preventative?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, I'm dealing with some hypotheticals, so do my best to respond to that. I think if we take the example of this year, the response and what we put in place was very early monitoring, so looking for sightings of birds and in what locations they may be. So the early part of the season, we were monitoring multiple locations to see whether or not a roost would be established. I would imagine in any future season we would do a similar monitoring very early before the birds have arrived en masse, and that we've really just got the scouting birds that we're looking for.
Ilya, would you like to add?
Just through the chair, I think a couple of points to make to your first two questions, and then I might also invite Phil to make some comments on understanding, to the best of what we know, the behaviour of the birds. First of all, yes, it is speculative. I think what you will have seen on any given week, including the week where we hit 20,000, that on any given day we didn't have the full population every day for a week. So that week of 20,000 wasn't 7 days. What we don't know is where else the balance of that population was roosting at that time, and we've had presented to this committee before that currently the technology doesn't exist to be able to tag this size of bird. And a challenge to be able to then really understand where else they're roosting, and the report also does talk to at breeding times we're not sure where those populations are. So we could have a scenario where the numbers grow, but at any given time they're not all roosting in the same location. But I think it's probably appropriate just to bring Phil in for a brief comment on the scale of the population over time.
There it is, thank you. Thank you, and through the chair, I want to highlight that what we don't know is a lot. We've got a lot of really good data in this first year, but we're dealing with a species that hasn't occupied an urban setting like this anywhere in the world before now. So you're the guinea pigs, I'm afraid. And so with that information, there's a lot. There was a question around, how many is too many deaths in a season. We've probably got about 3% of that roosting population that's died. We don't know what the recruitment rate is, and we'd have to understand how many juveniles succeed and fledge each year to actually know what the counterbalance, whether the population could be declined or increasing. We don't have that information. It's just not in the literature. No one's done the studies. We're getting some of the information here, but we don't even know where they're breeding. So any question around how many are going to, is the population going to escalate next year? Are they going to go back to the same location next year? We're at the mercy of what they decide they want to do. Unfortunately, that's the reality, because we just don't know enough about this species and what exactly is attracting it to that location and why. But we're gathering the information. We're learning about the species of trees they're in. We understand the size of the branches they prefer, and we recognise that at 20,000 they were quite saturated and moved to other trees that are further down the mall. So it's quite a dynamic situation, and we should just keep collecting data, monitoring how they're moving under different circumstances, how their numbers are changing, and then we can start to build the picture to make all the right decisions along the way.
And just one final question. And given that this is a unique experience in Australia for this large number of birds to descend on one place, is there any experience anywhere else in the world about how governments deal with this? Because it seems extraordinary to me that a local government area in a very small part of Australia is burdened with what is a really substantial, crisis and tragedy for a large part of the year. Is there some example anywhere else of how countries deal with this? Look, is it a federal responsibility? I mean, they're foreign birds.
Thank you.
Department of Foreign Affairs or...
Thank you for the question and through the chair. Look, Councillor, the report is pretty clear that under federal and state law, which is why we're activated as we are, the responsibilities and where they lie. So part of why this falls to the City of Adelaide is the Tree Martins have chosen land under the care and control of the City of Adelaide, and hence with that we come with responsibilities. It's not avoiding a question. The difficulty is the different legislative regimes in different jurisdictions, noting here we have a combination of federal and state law. We certainly did look at what happens in other jurisdictions, but in combination with, we also don't have other populations of trans-migratory birds of this nature in urban constructs, and what does that mean? Gives us another unique set of circumstances. That said, and a little bit to the answer you heard before, is a big reason why we have proposed the approach. And certainly issues such as research and assessment on what else we would be looking to partners for. Our burden extends to the management within the public realm and how we manage that response. But of course, we'd be looking for partners in terms of research and trying to explore further. That starts to get beyond, I think, the remit of council to take that level of responsibility.
Okay, and related to that, one final question. Is there any interest from any other area of government, for example, the federal department responsible for the legislation or the State Department, in what we're doing, any provision of advice or seeking of information?
Through the chair, in the early days, we certainly consulted with groups like Green Adelaide, Department of Environment, Water, PIRSA regarding sort of what was occurring in the City of Adelaide. We didn't extend as far as nationally, but noting, as Ilya's mentioned, the national legislation, that would be an area that we could certainly, now that we've got a baseline of data, start understanding more what are those potential partners that are out there that could provide support.
Thank you.
I have Councillor Snape, Freeman, Kouros and Ma.
We should consider including them in the census so we can get more infrastructure funding from the federal government. Joking aside, bird flu is obviously, we're on the verge of a massive situation right now across the country, but especially in this state. Have we done any kind of forward thinking in regards to what that looks like for this population, both the immediate small population that's there, but also, you know, the next season? Are we lucky, for example, that it's their off season while this is happening, or has there been some forward thinking and planning around that?
Yeah, thank you, and through the chair, and the team might add some contemporary additions. We have references in the report, but it's a moving feast at the moment. Firstly, PIRSA is the lead, and that's who we are engaged with and talking to. So for the management of that within the South Australian context, the federal government has enacted its management plan for the H5 avian bird flu virus. And so PIRSA is taking a lead and opportunity from there, and we're working with Green Adelaide and PIRSA in regular conversation. To date, no birds within the current colony that we're aware of have presented with avian flu, and it is largely located to coastal regions, which is what you're hearing in reports. I'd probably ask whether Jason has anything further in terms of the most contemporary advice on that particular matter. But in effect, like other emergency management, we are responding to the lead from PIRSA. They are aware of the colony and will continue to monitor.
Yes, I'd just like to,
confirm that that's the approach we're taking. So we are referring such questions to PIRSA to get that, to provide that guidance around issues like this. And as they are collating all the information and running the incident management team around the issue, so they've got that best place to provide most effective feedback on this. So we'd be, yes, recommending PIRSA advice on this one as well.
Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Chair. So a few questions about the end of season report. I think the team did a really good job out there. I did speak to a few of them when I wandered Rundle Mall, and it was very diligent work. And, you know, the report talks a lot about the tree mountain activity, obviously, but also it wasn't so pleasant for the businesses, and that's well assessed. What's not in here is what the everyday person said. And I say that because I noticed quite a few people looking at the birds with interest, and I mean, not everyone, depending on if you were standing in the wrong spot, but people were genuinely curious about them. I had a small group of scouts visit my street a few months ago. What was the sentiment like in the mall, noting it is a really popular retail area, but, you know, was there a theme in what we were hearing from people as they passed by?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, I'm just looking in the attachment to the first report, and in there we had tried to summarise from different stakeholder perspectives what we were hearing on the ground. I think you've probably summarised it quite well, which was more fascination and interest in what was occurring from the general community, less so from a more technical point of view. It's actually on page 18 of that end of season report where we provide a summary of some of those sentiments.
Thank you.
It's page 33 of the agenda pack.
That's all right. Thank you. I'll have a look at that in my own time. Oh, look, and just another random question, but I note in the report as well, it says that tree martins are a really good indicator of environmental health. Because that's okay. You know, it indicates an abundance of insects and all sorts of other things. Does this assessment actually provide us data that we can use in other parts of the organisation in measuring environmental performance, or, I don't know, is there a dual purpose for the data we've collected, or is it really just for this?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. Firstly, it is very deliberately a specific report, both the end of season study and the management response. That said, you know that we undertake biodiversity planning across the city. It does give us some data to understand more broadly what is going on. We haven't turned our minds to how it might be cross-referenced. This has absolutely been a focused exercise with regard to our response to tree martins. But like with all of the data sets that we have been collecting, the opportunity to look at cross-referencing and what other insights we gather is, I'd call that a down-the-line opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, now I'm jumping ahead to 7.2 with questions. Considering we are recommending to proceed again with a similar response to this season, when I walked past, the seating we have in Rundle Mall is unfortunately positioned right next to those trees. Have we given any thought to just rearranging some of the infrastructure in the mall, maybe having greater exclusion areas or something, just to... Sorry, a bit of noise over there.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Members, can we
just thank
have
you.
one person speaking?
Just to, I guess, reduce the clashes of the different users of the mall, including the tree martins.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. Certainly during this season we did trial some temporary exclusion approaches, and we also had some additional signage when we had particular activations in that location. Have we turned our minds to more permanent physical infrastructure changes for next season? I would suggest not. We really just managed the season through those temporary exclusions where we needed to have a little bit more space for different activity.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question was about Lee Street, which is effectively proposing to stay as is as well for the next season. I did want to understand, just because I don't have the background, whether alternatives were explored for Lee Street in the past. Additionally, what is the cost of the netting to be replaced this year? What is the life of that netting? But I'm happy for that to be an undertaking if that's easiest responded in that way.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, we can cover most of those questions tonight, I think. Historically, with regard to Lee Street, and I think it's important to couch the answer this way, given it is reflected in the matrix and approach that's before you with the management plan. The issues with Lee Street was a health and safety issue in a food and beverage corridor, and those interface issues were insurmountable. So we're really clear through the legislative framework, the welfare of birds that are protected need to be foremost, but where we have a clash that's insurmountable, that triggered the need for response in Lee Street. There was a range of options that were considered, including canopies. I think they commenced with umbrellas, more temporary infrastructure, more permanent such as canopies, and for a whole range of technical solutions, including span, impacts into the public realm, the movement of people, noting that Lee Street also sits on the Market to Riverbank corridor and the access to the railway station. They just weren't viable. That is where we ended up with an option to say we needed to deal with the interface issue, hence the netting of trees. You will have seen then a commitment, because of those safety reasons, to continue to exclude Lee Street. Within that context, those nets have hit end of useful life, the trees have grown, it's caused tears and other issues. And again, we've highlighted within the report that we have we're continuing to undertake assessments live as we speak. We have a netting system that is supported by Green Adelaide. The cost of that, which is inclusive of the nets as well as the actual effort to demount and install those nets, and an intended approach that in the off-season we take the nets off to give the trees the most ability to kind of breathe and function and drop leaves and be maintained, is at circa $14,000.
Councillor Couros. You say in the report that you're going to a budget review will be done in Q1, and this will be with a report, I assume, in regards to the ongoing management of the tree marshes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair.
Martins.
If you recall, Councillor, yes, we did foreshadow in the 26-7 annual business plan and budget process, because the season would go beyond the financial year, that rather than try to estimate a figure and not see the full season, that we would come back at Q1. The report before you does talk to some of the costs we anticipate, or that we know through the first season. We will formalise that as a request. Why it's important that we get this before you this evening is obviously the season comes back around again. So we need to be in a position that we're able to activate some of the interventions, replace nets, etc. within Lee Street. So council will see that as a formal request figure. In simple terms, for example, with the data you have in front of you, there's a consultancy for a management report that we won't need, so you won't see that cost in the request. It is largely the operational and management response.
Okay. And just as feedback, I did hear you say that you increased the cleansing. It's not the response I've been getting from the public. They felt like it wasn't enough cleansing. So you said it was daily, is that right? You were there daily?
Yeah, thank you, and through the chair, daily on both the management response and the cleansing response, and in some cases twice a day.
Oh, wow.
I think the straightest way that I can put this is on particular days where it gets heavy, it's a little bit like clearing a bin. It fills, we are there to collect it, but there is a moment where you might get that increased odour. The team, I think, was incredibly diligent across what were some 200 days of the season. To just actively monitor the site, including smells that weren't associated with tree mark. So that's something that we've learnt from this season. We'll look to adopt and adapt in a stronger way next season. And also, I think the interaction with AIDA and the Rundle Mall team about when we knew events were going to happen and other interfaces is where we tried to be proactive and get ahead of those at particular times through the year.
Councillor Ma.
Thank you. A quick follow question before I get into the ones I was going to ask. Is our equipment up to it? Is there something else we could be using for the cleaning, or is it just a matter of volume?
Look, thank you for the question through the chair. I think I've covered that. It's not the equipment is up to it. It's just we can't get the smell lands. We try to be as ahead of it as possible, and we cleanse immediately and deodorise.
Okay. I'm going to refer to starting page 104 and 128 of the pack, which is chapter 5 of 7.2 attachment. About the particular trees, I noticed something that you said earlier about we know what size twig they like to sit on. Is that accurate and fair? We know generally what kind of tree they're going to go for?
You have to watch it for.
Thank you for the question through the chair. In terms of, we know that now selected 2 different tree species, both, while different, have some similarities in terms of structure and ability to have that quantum of birds. They're only small, but they do congregate close together in those clusters. So that's probably an area for more sort of research and investigation as to whether other tree species could also, but they're currently the 2 species that we've identified, and we're looking at our tree species around the city. That's part of that informing around where potential other roost sites around what sorts of trees.
That's my next question. Yep. So the report itself doesn't actually say where. It's the appendix B, the next part of the report, the attachment to the attachment. Is there anything other quality of the tree besides the size of twig that we think is attractive to the birds?
Thank you for the question. I'm happy to give that a go. I guess we've looked at the similarities of the characteristics between Lee Street and the mall. Some of that pertains to the width of the space.
Yeah.
Lee Street was about 10 metres, the mall was about 20 metres from building edge to building edge. We looked at obviously the extent of tree canopy within those spaces, so both have quite mature tree species, trees, and then building heights as well. So we think, and I think back last year we talked about non-trafficable, so pedestrians, lights, sound, which seem to be similar in both locations, which again a theory that potentially attracts them because it deters the predators that may be maybe not attracted to those kinds of locations.
So then the follow-up question, it also ties into one of the reports we had last year.
Members,
could
you please?
I think it was last year, it might have even been early this year, where the theory was they like the high sides and then the trees down the centre because that mimics what they would naturally look out for in the natural environment. Looking at Appendix B, I'm not seeing Hutt Street as a place with really high sides and a thin valley and trees, and it's not quite the same, but it's the first one on the list. Is there another reason it's on there?
Thank you. And for the question through the chair, I guess it has some characteristics, but may not achieve all of the characteristics. So it'd be an area that we'd certainly monitor, noting we've also got a high food and beverage locality. So it's an area that the opportunity or potential for high conflict is elevated in those situations, similar with Gooja Street and other main streets.
Have we put any thought to, and this is long-term years, assuming this becomes an ongoing issue, we put any thought to our tree planting and tree renewal process as to what trees we choose to put in the city?
Thank you for the question through the chair. We have, and it's been the feature of reports that have come to council, both for plantings within the urban realm, for canopy, tree resilience, and that's for biodiversity reasons, and as well as urban heat, and the same for the Adelaide parklands. So I think what you're hearing tonight, if we were to put the tree martin lens on, we don't have a conclusive list that says these are desirable and these are undesirable. It's a set of conditions. Yeah. With more monitoring, we get a better idea, but not dissimilar. We're aware within the Adelaide parklands what provides habitat for other animals and are well documented, so that the city, and in combination with partners like Green Adelaide, we have very good awareness of species type for purposes. And again, we've brought tree management reports to council previously in terms of the selection of species we have and where we apply them.
So that would be nice to see long term, like 3 years' time when we've got more data, maybe that becomes a piece that we work towards. You know, if we know that this selection of trees are attractive, we're definitely going to put them here and not here to try and encourage them one way or another instead of using nets or whatever else as a management strategy. Other than that, I didn't have any feedback on either of the reports, so thank you.
I'll just make a comment. I think every season we're going to learn more, and that data that you were talking about is absolutely critical. And perhaps you'll be able to write a book about it. Make loads of money. I have Councillor Kabata as the last one on my list. Would you like to sum up, or have you got?
Yes, I just want to say thank you on 7.1 and 7.2. I think you guys have done a remarkable job, so thank you for all your hard work. Summed up.
That was summing up the two motions, I take it? I'd like to put the two motions, 7.1 and 7.2, to a vote. All in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Well done. Thank you very much. Now, we need to seek leave of the meeting to continue past 8:30. All in favour? Against? Carried. I can't combine the next two, so we'll have to. We have 7.3, statewide food hazards code amendment submission. Moved by Councillor Snape, seconded by Councillor Stephen-Tripp. Would you like to speak to it?
So it's a good report. I trust the staff with this one. It's not my area of expertise.
Councillor Stephen-Tripp?
Happy to support this. I did have a question might lead to an undertaking. So having a look at the before and after maps, there are clearly some areas, well, I would say clearly, it would appear to me there are some areas within the CBD that now are indicating some low level of flooding, and they're in the highlighted green. I just raise this because I'm aware that in other cities around Australia where new flood mapping has been introduced, there have been implications for insurance. And in some cases, such as Brisbane, there are some well-publicised examples where insurance has become unaffordable for, in that case, residential properties. So, while I'm happy to support this because I know we need to do it, I am curious as to whether we've looked at potential insurance implications, and if we haven't, whether we could perhaps reach out to local government risk services to find out.
Thank you through the chair. We'll take that as an undertaking and come back with an answer with you. I'd suspect in the context of just assessing the code amendment, we haven't taken that particular issue that far, but happy to look into it for you.
Great, thank you.
Members, any other questions, comments? Councillor Snape, would you like to see summed up? All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 7.4, we actually have the economic value of the Adelaide Parklands. I asked, I think that was Lord Mayor. I'm not sure. I saw a lot of.
Can I just start by saying how delighted I am to see this? When Caterpillar moved that we should have an economic assessment, because there are people in our community who don't see the value of the parklands and just see it as, a bit of dirt that's undeveloped, without landscaping in some cases, and unloved. It's really important for people to understand what it means. Now, I have to say I'm a scientist who's understands numbers and facts and data, and economics is a dark art, let's be honest. The assessments are rubbery, they have approximations, they have rounding up, they have rounding down. But I used to be the Minister for Tourism, and that's the dark art that's used throughout the economy. It's the dark art that's used across state government, it's the dark art that's used across federal government, it's the dark art that's used everywhere else. You can argue about the percentages being a little bit wrong, but when you say there are 41.5 million people making individual visits to the parklands, and that's 130,000 a day, I think, you can't argue with that because it's based on stats produced by organisations, bodies and groups that have been amalgamated It may be a dark art, but it's the best guess we can have. And it's quite obvious that there are things people might argue about. They might argue about the institutions on North Terrace being included. They might argue about major events. They might argue about the Oval. But at the end of the day, this is a big number. It's a big number of people, it's a big number of visits, and it's a big number of dollars. And it's been broken down into not just the economic value, but the health value, the environmental value, the social value, the sporting value. It is brilliant. And I know this is going to be sharpened and worked on, but I will defend this because this is dark art, but it's the dark art that is the standard, the gold standard across our economy.
Well said, and I hope the media has picked that up. Councillor Kouros. Sorry, Councillor Kabata, would you like to? No? Councillor Kouros.
This might be a silly question, sorry if it is getting, I'm hungry. Does this take into account events, people that come, like, have we separated them? Like, sorry, I couldn't see that anywhere. Can you just show me?
It does. In terms of the 41 million, as said, the 41 million does include the events. So the way that 41 million has been calculated is, realistically, it's probably conservative. So it picks up mobile phone pings. So it's anonymised data, but it records that there was a mobile phone in the parklands. And what we did was set some limits on the times. So we said it will only record you if you've spent more than, I think, 5 minutes in the parkland, so that we exclude commuters and people like that. But if you arrive at an event in the parklands with your mobile phone, you'll get picked up in that. But that number doesn't include people that are using the parklands that don't have a mobile phone. So the example I've used is if I take my daughter and my 2 nephews to the zoo, it's in the parklands, that'll record me as one visit. There was actually 4 of us there. So the 41 million realistically reads on the low side. We've got some separate numbers in there that talk specifically about events where we've got data or we've got things that we can talk about. But the overall visitation number includes people attending events.
So it doesn't separate it from someone going to the zoo, someone going to the Botanic Gardens and what they bring. You're putting everything in one big bundle. You're not separating the economic value of each thing.
Yeah. So thank you for the question, and through the chair, I will make the point that it's not additive. So you can't add all of the numbers in the report together to get the outcome, because what we have done is we've looked at different economic value across different streams. So part 4 of the report is the part of that talks to culture and events. I'm on page 52. There's a specific indicator around events and Adelaide Parklands activation. So we have called out events as a specific indicator, and we've got some dollar figures around that. There will also be reflected in some of the other indicators, things like job numbers related to that, or other indicators that are supporting. So definitely called out as separate, but not additive, not adding up all the numbers together.
So is the economic value of the parklands based on what the events in total, or we're talking about people who use it for health and well-being, or I'm just trying to understand what we're trying to unpack here.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. Councillor, yes, it is all those things, and there are probably several points in the report that break down the sport and recreation, avoided health costs, environmental benefits, sustainability benefits, events, direct revenues from a series of institutions, and importantly, this is a collation of data that we were given access to at points in time. This is not the complete list, and we have the opportunity, as more state departments or other data sets come on board, to grow each of these subsets, where we might find a particular annual report comes out or someone's happy to share their data, we're then able to enhance the figures that are currently within this report.
So then you're talking about the economic benefit, that it also, we're talking about the fringe, we're talking about motorsports, we're talking about people using the golf course, everything's all of it.
Correct, Councillor. This is, given that it was the lens of the Cattle Tiller Adelaide Parklands Authority, it is the whole of the Adelaide Parklands, irrespective of whose care and control.
Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions to start. And sorry, I've lost my spot. I was looking at a map before. I was looking at the map on at the start of the report. It's got it's a heat map of which parks are. There we go. So it's page 192 of the pack, page 13 of the document. Can I just understand the colour scale here? Is darker more visits or is lighter more visits?
That's the symmetry.
And does it count only people that are still with us?
Members.
Through the presiding member, darker does indicate more visits. That has come off the mobile phone data that's there. We interrogated bits of it. There is some correlation between people parking. There's correlation between sports events. There are anomalies like asymmetry being included in that large bit. But yes, to your question, darker is more.
That is fascinating because, sorry, I still have another question. Because Lefevre Park, the cemetery or the Western Parklands and Johnny Brown Park are all parks that we've been recently criticised for not activating. No one uses them, no one visits them. Well, the data says the complete opposite. How about that? Unbelievable. The other question I had was, actually it's not a question, so I'll just make a few comments. I love this and I'm very, very greedy, and so my first thought was, can we expand this economic assessment to vacant buildings, which I've talked about before, but also active transport, because I actually don't think this council has ever undertaken its own economic assessment of cycling and walking. It relies on interstate or international examples. This starts to talk about cycling and walking and the fact that by making people healthier, it's less of a burden on the healthcare system. You can easily quantify that. Let's do it for the whole city, because I'm really sick of having the argument about why cycling is so great. What's also really interesting in this report to me, page 14, visitor distribution by day of the week. Every single day, the parklands visit. That is just remarkable. And particularly when you compare the fact that people only work in the city Monday to Friday or Tuesday to Thursday, they shop once a week, but they come to the parklands every day. That really cannot be understated. And I certainly intend to spread the word about that one. The final comment I wanted to make is this report is excellent. Sharing it more broadly would be really useful. Having almost a dashboard or something like that to just share this online or through our comms would be amazing. And yeah, I'd love to see this expanded into other areas, particularly active transport, and the title of the report can be More Than Car Parking.
Every opportunity. Councillor Ma.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to break down the difference between sport as a participant, sport as an attendee, and events as an attendee. I'm struggling to do it myself, reading the report. So we're looking at part 3 and part 4. Where do the AFL games fit in? Are they in page 218 of the pack, or are they in part 4 on page 231? Anyway. Oh, sorry. Of the report, page 52 for events, or page 39 for.
Through the presiding member on that one, the numbers on page 39 of the report are geared around participants. It's more community sport, what we'd see playing out in the parklands.
Yeah.
The expenditure and the visitation for people attending Adelaide Oval for AFL games is what you see reflected in the culture and events on page 4, most of the, with the data that we've got and the way that we're able to calculate it, there's often a reliance back on this 41 million with the mobile phone pings that we pick up. That's the most reliable, defensible data that we can get in terms of visitation. And so we see when we get into the spend map data where it came from, you can see if you set a short enough time scale, you can see a spike in parts around that attendance. We haven't in this report given sort of a week by week blow of how that works. We've kept it fairly high level. Some of that is to do with the amount of data crunching we have to do. Some of it's to do with the cost of obtaining the data. It's all up for grabs in terms of future opportunities and where we might be able to go. This is a first cut.
Yeah. Well, so I guess the general version of the question is, and maybe this is feedback for the next version of this, a clear definition of what counts as I think what I'm hearing is community sport and professional sport. That seems to be the delineation, but maybe it's not quite as clear cut in this version of the report.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. I think one of the things that it might be worth just reiterating for this report is we've been quite deliberate to provide the methodologies that we've used. So something like a social value might hit across all of the indicators. Something like a sports or a health value might hit across all of or multiple indicators. So what we've tried to do is actually be specific about the economic method that we've used to calculate the value. We haven't used the same economic method for every indicator. So sometimes it might be a willingness to pay, sometimes it might be a direct employment or a figure. So it's not apples and apples, but what it does allow us to do is to say within that general indicator, here is a figure that represents the value that it presents from an economic perspective. So I think we've been quite transparent, and part of the reason for doing that is so that, one, we can test it with stakeholders and others to say, are our numbers and methods right? There was a lot of work done in stage 1 to get some advice on what the right methodologies were, but also so that we can repeat methods into the future.
And then the final question on the same sort of topic, annual active sport participants, 25,000 plus volunteers, so 30,000. I'm adding a couple of numbers here, but maybe you can't add them up, like you say. Individuals, not total visits, which is interesting. I'm on page 37 and 38. So that's 25,000 individuals accounting for all of those visits by the sound of things. Does that include individuals who use the golf course?
Thank you for the question through the chair. I think the short answer is yes. We've included visitation to the parklands.
So there are not 100,000 individuals that use the golf course every year?
Look, thank you, and through the chair. Councillor, I think, and I appreciate some of the specificity of your questions. The challenge that a report like this has when it's looking at a whole network asset is if we were to do individual studies on every single subset, I think you'd be shocked by the consultant cost that would need to come forward, and it would be an incredibly long exercise. Yes. So just to reiterate probably some of the Lord Mayor's earlier points and Sarah's points, we've gone to available data sets with known and agreed methodologies. If we were to do subsets of any particular one, that is very specific counting within locations and then deriving what social or economic benefit values are. So these are the collective counts where we've been able to access data, whether it was from phone pings on spend map data, existing annual reports from particular systems, and amalgamated those under headings which align with, to coin the Lord Mayor's term, consistent application of the dark arts. So there's consistent comparison across reports. If there was interest in the future for very specific subsets, we would have to undertake particular work.
I was mostly just curious to see that the 25,000 was the accurate number for the entirety of sports participants. Therefore, there wouldn't possibly be 100,000 just for the golf course if the total is 25,000.
50,000 rounds of golf every year.
It's a round of golf a year.
There are 150,000 every year.
Rounds,
Yes.
but not individuals.
They would
That's
have
the-
tickets by
Yeah,
individuals.
that's the question.
Sorry, it's
Yeah.
a piece of brain, just these things
Um,
clogging up my brain.
So that's kind of what I'm pulling at is it'd be nice. It's nice to see that somewhere along the line someone else has confused rounds with individuals.
Yeah, and to be fair, we have measures such as 3.1 million unique visits against 140 net visits. Yeah.
Thank you. Great report.
Councillor Snook.
I'll keep it much simpler, briefer than I was, and just say, reiterate what Lord Mayor said and how important this piece of work is and how great it is to see this come forward. And I think it's makes a strong, compelling case around the importance of our parklands, and I think there'll be a lot of people out in the community who want to see this report as well, and be able to fight back against the state government's dark arts around various things, and able to quantify our own numbers and statistics as well. So thank you so much to the team for this amazing work.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Sarah. Lord Mayor, would you like to sum up?
I'd only sum up to say that I would improve this if it had a date on it. One of the things I find irritating about our reports is if you find them on the shelf, you can't always find a date. So this is this iteration approved by council, whatever date it is. But it is only the first iteration, and clearly there are big data sets here that can be assembled and analysed. And I'm almost surprised that we had an external consultant to do this, because I would have thought this is a job for a data analyst. Did we? Internally.
No, to clarify, this was this phase of work was in-house. Yep.
Because in fact, big data and internal analysis is one of the cores of local government. We need data analysts, and the metadata, the data mining in this is just one aspect of what's so important in council. But anyway, it is fabulous, and I'm so pleased. Thank you. You've done a brilliant job.
Great. I'll put that to a vote. All in favour? Carried. And can I just say that every single motion tonight over the two committees were unanimous. What am I? The meeting is closed.
Except for going past that 30.